Okay. And we're gonna be recording as well, Helen, so,
Okay,
so I'm gonna switch you over. I'm gonna switch over to the main
yeah,
output.
but someone will introduce me and then I just read. Is that the idea?
Correct.
Okay, I'll mute my mic for now.
Okay.
It's hard to recognize you with that name. Is it? Yeah. Yeah, the last thing I want to do is get sick. Did you guys all of that? Oh, it's good to meet you. It's good to see you. So you're not like you're on land. I'm used to seeing you as a lake.
Oh, yes,
Or
that's
near
true.
water. Yeah.
Near water.
I should have gone more this summer, but I usually paddle board.
It's a good bunch of us going.
It seemed like we get board out and that.
Get your car and drive around the lake.
I love my car. I will next year.
Do you have a hard one or a soft one or a slow up one? Sorry. What? If I can do it.
It's like a really big, heavy one.
Too much for me.
I'm so glad that I was on your crowd. And you
So I thought, well, I gotta go over there. So I got up on it and I managed to stand up in the middle of the lake.
Oh, yeah, so fun.
We gotta cheer each other up.
Yeah.
Or at least see them.
Yeah. Yours is so interesting.
It does.
No, what's the word?
You're interesting.
That's a compliment.
I'm bored. I know, I like that shirt.
Yeah. When she got up on the board, how did it go? It was harder than I thought. Well, you know, I was like, well, a lot of people don't do it. When I get out. Waves are coming this way. I'm always made the same. There's not. Hi, Anderson.
What's going on in your own?
No, I had a photo set.
No reason. How much pain are you?
Really, as much as I thought I would. Not so much. It's more like kind of space. If I keep it still. I don't know, I just really like it. It's really good. So I kept waiting, and then in the construction manual, well, sometimes when the block sedation wears off, all of a sudden you'll be in trouble. So that was wait. When's the pain gonna turn? There she is. And now I almost, I wanted to hear if you had any words of wisdom for us, putting up with this. Yeah, very. I've been so impressed. Beautiful. You know what? Thank you. You're welcome. Is this your sermon? All right. Thank you. Oh, do you have more? That's all right. You can read this one now, so I'm taking it. Because it's tough. Tough week. There's so many events and oh, yeah. What is it? Maybe we'll talk. I'll work it out. It's a good setting. Really, they're only like, how are you guys having an event? What? How you little mad? Hanging in. I get it, that's what it comes out of hanging. But anyway, I just so is it more? No, it's a community, just anyone, so anyone. Well, just wanted you to know that nobody's going to go for what I'm saying. Oh, no. Whenever you're ready.
Hey, everybody, we're going to start in a few minutes, but did anyone drop their key? Bob?
I'm just going to read it. Okay. This is you're using the other one. No, because studies have shown that standard for our bodies, and there is many different business. Yeah, I read a whole book about it. So crazy. Personally, I like the early one. I do too. I like the standard. If you're a morning meditation, right? Yeah. That's why I was sweet. But this Jerusalem showed up at one time. He has not been very good. So it's really fun. It's not like.
Good afternoon, friends.
Good afternoon.
And welcome to St. John's Episcopal Church. My name is Vicki Ix. I'm the vicar here, and it's my honor and joy to greet you on behalf of this community of faith. For over 200 years, people have gathered here to pray and be formed by the gospel. But long before that, native people stewarded this place and hunted in these hills and fished in Ashfield Lake. So we are mindful that we worship and share God's mission on the unceded land of the Nipmuc, the Pocumtuck, and Wabanaki peoples. We acknowledge the truth that our blessing came at the price of their sorrow. And learning from and engaging with our Native neighbors here in Ashfield has been a great blessing for us. With the Episcopal Church, we are on a journey of truth-telling, repentance, and reconciliation.
Evening tightens around me. They teach me still. The family that time has whittled away, they teach me. This is a tanka written by Carol Purrington. And why is my phone going off like this? I brought it to me, but maybe we'll go to plan B with that. Carol wrote many of these tanka in the weeks and months before she died, and it was published posthumously. Carol was my friend and the friend of and beloved sister and sister-in-law of people in this room, and for about almost 25 years, we read poems together and gossiped and had projects. And Carol always had something up her sleeve. One of them was poems for new mothers when she found out that my daughter was having a baby, and one was to make a recording of all her favorite poems. And one of them was to deaccession her library. There was always something up her sleeve. But one of the last ones was to produce an anthology of poems of solace, poems that could be embraced at tender moments of one's life. And we started that project, but we didn't finish it before her death. But a week before she died, I visited her, and I promised that I would bring it to fruition. So this is the first step towards that completion. And we are so delighted and really touched to embed this within the Anne Browning series. For Anne Browning was beloved by us, a wonderful neighbor and poet. And so we are holding two very wonderful people, wonderful women today. The title, she had the title already. She was very busy. And the title of this book that I promised I would help her finish was Let Evening Come. Comes from a poem by Jane Kenyon. And this is that poem. And this poem will be the first one in the anthology. And what you have brought will find a place throughout. Let the light of late afternoon shine through chinks in the barn, moving up the bales as the sun moves down. Let the cricket take up chafing as a woman takes up her needles and her yarn. Let evening come. Let dew collect on the hoe abandoned in long grass. Let the stars appear and the moon disclose her silver horn. Let the fox go back to its sandy den. Let the wind die down. Let the shed go black inside. Let evening come. to the bottle in the ditch, to the scoop in the oats, to air in the lung, let evening come. Let it come as it will, and don't be afraid. God does not leave us comfortless. So let evening come. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Sarah, and I'm afraid my phone, which had your bio so carefully recorded, is going to have to remain mute and well-behaved. So perhaps you can say a little bit about your background.
Hey, everybody. Susan Todd very modestly did not introduce herself, so that was Susan Todd, everybody, who is always incredibly dedicated organizer and editor and poet and friend to so many. So thank you, Susan. I'm going to have my phone up here so I can keep track of time because I am emceeing our afternoon together. But I will take this moment to ask you to silence your phones since Ashfield now has some reception sometimes. As Susan said, this, and many of you have been at previous Anne Hutt Browning readings over the years. It began the year that she passed away, which was 2011, and Richard Wilbur was our first reader in that series. He was a favorite poet of hers, and the Browning family, we all feel super honored to have this series named in her memory. She was a poet, a longtime resident of Ashfield. She chaired the fundraising committee that purchased the town common here to make it a public space, a common space for us all. She was on the vestry of the church. She just couldn't stop, really. And she was a fine poet. So I'm going to kick us off. I'm going to continue with a poem of hers from her book that we published in the last couple of years of her life. She was sick for some time, so but we were able to get this out. Can you hear in the back? Yes. Great. So, but this is a reminder to folks, especially if you have a quiet voice, to speak closely to the mic. Okay. When I was in high school, we were lucky to live in what was then Yugoslavia. When my dad, Preston Browning, had a Fulbright, and this poem originates from that year. Journey to Treskovich. When I stumbled on the searing rock, stones skittered under my shoes, and there, between my bitten hands and knees, I found a touch of color. On the scrabbled sheep path that was the hard way up to the monastery, an autumn crocus pushed, purple and gold, a petaled star rising from dust. Skirting its leaflessness, I hurried along to catch the others. What I know is that it came to be a part of me and rises now, balm like honey. I see in our sign-ups that someone has brought an Adrienne Rich poem, which I'm really pleased to see. I brought a quote from one of her essays from Poetry and Commitment, because we're going to need poetry and all of our creative minds and imaginations so much in the days ahead. We always need it. But here's something she wrote. When poetry lays its hand on our shoulder, we are, to an almost physical degree, touched and moved. The imagination's roads open before us, giving the lie to that slammed and bolted door, that razor-wired fence, that brute dictum, there is no alternative. So we are here building that alternative, poem by poem and reading by reading and song by song. I'm grateful to you all and to Susan and to Andy in the back, who's doing the tech and streaming us on Zoom. So thank you, Andy. Let's give it up for him. All right, our first person on the mic, next person on the mic is Sylvia White. Sylvia. And we can decide as we go. I know we're in church, but I think we can applaud. Yeah. What do you all think? Because I think we're going to need to support each other in all these ways. So let's give it up for Sylvia.
Hi there. This is very short from the Isha Upanishad. This is perfect. That is perfect. Take perfect from perfect, and the remainder is perfect. May peace and peace and peace be everywhere.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Peace indeed. Okay, is it going to be helpful if I do like who's on deck? Yes, okay. Yeah, baseball family. So, Gail Abbott is coming next, and after Gail, we're going to have Jean Douillard. Douillard. All right, Jean. All right, first Gail. Let's give it up for Gail Abbott.
This is a poem by Robert Frost, nice and short for you guys. Closer? Yeah. How's this? This is a poem by Robert Frost. Dust of snow. The way a crow shook down on me, the dust of snow from a hemlock tree, has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued.
Gail, was that your first time reading a poem on the mic? All right. All right, Gail. All right, is it Jeannie or Jean or? Jean. It is Jean. All right, Jean Douillard is coming up, and Susie Patlaw, if you're on deck. Let's give it up for Jean.
So I wrote this poem in the months before my husband died. He had died in May of this year, and I thought that I'd like to share it with you. I am going to have some French in there, and let me just say that ta petite means your inner child. It sounds a lot better in French, and I have another line, and it'll be translated for you. It's called All is Gift. Be not afraid to walk into the heart of darkness, for the night has much to teach, as does the light. Trust this heart of yours. Prenez ta petite par la main. Reassure her, guide her, love her. She is your very best self. And remember always, I am no longer that child, and I am no longer alone. Go out into the night where spring peepers, tree frogs, insects sing. Listen for deer light stepping in the woods and wolves singing to the moon. Howl with the coyotes. Be wise, alert. Beware the urge to run or turn away. Look for the deep down things and listen, listen, listen. Car dans l'obscurité, les étoiles lointaines sont révélées. For distant stars come to us in the darkest hours. Create a night garden in your heart. Sow seeds of trust and hope. Believe. Seek joy in the midst of profound grief. And know this, joy is not a feeling, it is a way of being. In the end, trust life. Welcome the darkness which precedes the light. And know that everything in life, pain, anxiety, despair, and yes, love, all is gift.
John, whew, I wrote down, create a night garden in your heart. What a line. Thank you. All right. Susie is next, and after that, Jan Freeman, you're on deck. So let's give it up for Susie Patlov.
Good afternoon. So, can you hear me? Is that good? I'm very happy that this is happening, that Susan, of course, is getting this together, and I really look forward to working on it a little bit myself. So those of you, many of you know me and know that my husband died a little over 2 years ago. So the poem I'm going to read, which is Beach Roses by Mark Doty. I'm reading because for me, after Les died, I felt like the way I could connect with him was to realize that I wasn't just my small individual self, that the reality of all of us is that we're also the whole universe. And this poem speaks to me about that. And I know sometimes it's hard to hear a poem just read, so I'm going to tell you just a little bit about it. The central image is of white roses on a foggy morning on the Cape. Mark Doty lives on the Cape. So anyway, the last thing I would just say about the poem is listen to the last line. Okay, so Beach Roses by Mark Doty. What are they, the white roses, when they are almost nothing, only a little denser than the fog? Shadow-centered petals blurring toward the edges into everything. This morning, one broken cloud built an archipelago, 14 gleaming islands hurrying across a blank plain of sheen. Nothing or next to nothing. Pure scattering, light on light, fleeting. And now, a heap of roses beside the sea. White rugosa beside the foaming hem of shore. Brave waxen candles. And we talk as if death were a line to be crossed. Look at them, the white roses. Tell me where they end.
Susie Padlov reading Mark Doty. Whew. And next up is Jan Freeman and Helena Snow. You are on deck. So Jan Freeman, let's give it up for Jan. Just the first, and if we have time, we'll do a second round.
Sounds good. This is really beautiful that this is happening. Thank you, Susan. And it's so wonderful to think of Carol at this time. She has been an inspiration to me, I guess, since I had judged the Ann Hutt Browning Youth Contest with Susan and Susie and Carol for many years. And that experience, through that experience, Carol was an inspiration to me, always, of bravery and tenacity and strength and creativity. I also want to just offer up one line. I'm going to read a poem by Ellen Bass, but I just want to offer you all a line from Muriel Rukeyser from The Life of Poetry, given the time that we are in right now. Poetry will not save us, but it is the type of creation in which we can live, which will save us. So, useful for us right now. The thing is to love life, to live it even when you have no stomach for it, and everything you've held dear crumbles like burnt paper in your hands, your throat filled with the silt of it. When grief sits with you, its tropical heat thickening the air, heavy as water, more fit for gills than lungs. When grief weights you like your own flesh, only more of it, an obesity of grief. You think, how can a body withstand this? Then you hold life like a face between your palms, a plain face, no charming smile, no violet eyes, and you say, yes, I will take you, I will love you again.
Yeah, Jan reading, the great and brilliant Ellen Bass. Yeah. Kate Caravan, you're on deck, but let's give it up now for Helena Snow.
Hi, everybody. I'm coming to you from France. Can you hear me? Of course, I don't know. I can't hear you telling me whether you hear me or not, so I'm going to leave that up to Andy. I want to thank Susan for this wonderful initiative and the possibility for me to participate, and Andy for making that possibility real. This is a poem by Adrienne Rich entitled For the Dead. And I'm not quite sure why it brings me such consolation, but it does, so I'm going to share it with you. I dreamed I called you on the telephone to say, be kinder to yourself. But you were sick and would not answer. The waste of my love goes on this way, trying to save you from yourself. I have always wondered about the leftover energy, the way water goes rushing down a hill long after the rains have stopped, or the fire you want to go to bed from but cannot leave, burning down but not burnt down. The red coals more extreme, more curious in their flashing and dying than you wish they were, sitting there long after midnight.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Helena. After Kate, I'm going to read a very short poem of my dad's. And then Vicky, you'll be after that. So let's give it up for Kate Caravan.
Thank you. I wrote this, or actually it kind of came to me about 3 years ago, after my daughter's death in early 2020. Opening. Grief is a gift wrapped in a lead box, impenetrable, heavy, and once opened, unreturnable. You didn't ask for it. It claims you, marks you as its own now and ever. After it opens you, in time, compassion leaks in. You begin to see all suffering as wind-borne pollen reaching grasses earthed deep underground.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kate. Many of you know my dad, Preston Browning. He's 95 and a half now, and for many years lived up the street at Wellspring House. 2 weeks ago, he went into rehab at Care One facility in Florence on Elm Street, and it doesn't look like he's coming home. He's just gotten too weak, and he can't afford around-the-clock care, and unfortunately, we don't have that in sight given the results of our election. So we're looking for a permanent place for him. But in the meantime, those of you who know him, or even if you don't, you've probably heard that he loves visitors and visiting and talking. He may have a mix of completely with it conversation and some what we're learning is called confabulation, where he thinks his dreams are real. So don't worry about that. But if you are in Northampton and you have a half an hour to stop by and see him, he would love it. It's at 548 Elm Street, just in Florence. It's called Care One, and it's room 300. And you can see me afterward if you want me to write that down for you. And, you know, I'll let Susan and the folks at the church know, and Vicky know when we found a permanent place for him, and, you know, so that you can visit him again. But at least for the week ahead, he just loves visitors. So I'm going to read a short poem of his. I picked, and he published this book called Sandino's Grave and Other Poems. Kate and others were involved, and my mother were involved in Salentaname Friendship Group, traveling for, every winter to Nicaragua. And my dad had been active on justice for the people of Central America for many years before that, and that's where the title poem comes from, which I'm not going to read, it's long, but this is a poem for my mother, and it ends the collection, so it seemed appropriate. And I'm going to preemptively apologize if I choke up. Someone to call you darling, for Anne. Miracles don't grow on trees, nor in crevices of canyon walls. You say, darling, and I'm astonished after almost 50 years of hard knocks and anger, tempered surely by tenderness and caring. Yet, darling, darling, you say again, and I say, but only in my heart. A miracle stopped by this morning, and I have learned enough in 77 years to recognize its luminous garments. That was Preston Browning. I want to say before I bring Vicki up that if you came late and you still want to read, Jane is in the back with the sign-up sheet, and you can see her. She's going to come right out and wave it at you. Oh, another announcement, and very important housekeeping announcement. Susan needs the hard copies of what you've read. No, I was suggesting that if anybody had come in late, they could see you. Everyone's signed up who wants to. Okay, great. If you didn't bring a hard copy or somebody had something memorized, I think, you can get Susan's email address and email it to her. So, but if you have a hard copy with you, you can be 20th century and hand it to Susan at the end of tonight. So, Jim Purrington, you're on deck, but let's now give it up for Vicki Ix.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for this great tradition of gathering for the spoken word. This poem is called Making World, and the poet's name is Rosemary Morgan. Suppose that it is we who generate grace for each other. If I could really love, who knows where in the world a blessing might be felt? I think it matters here and somewhere there for balance, exactly what I do. An act done well might raise up grace to be a bandage for a wounded world. Maybe God is just the knitter, knitting patches for our world with wool that we provide. Or maybe God is like a railroad switchman, just trying to keep the train going where it is needed for a healing. When I am callous, thoughtless, maker of a wound, perhaps the world entire groans. For good or ill it seems, no one of us lives alone.
Thank you. On deck is Ariana Collins. Great. But right now, let's give it up for Jim Purrington.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim, Carol's brother, and reading, kind of bookending what Susan's doing, reading a few haiku from Woodlawn Farm, which was Carol's first published book in 1989. And I'm reading, it's 4 seasons, and I'll be reading the autumn poems. Now, autumn was a special time for Carol. She was born November 16th, a few days from now. And 11 months later, in October, I was born. So, special for me too. Now, in our youth, I would harass her when my birthday came. Ha ha, I'm as old as you. Well, that lasted, 10 years? But in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, when my birthday came, she would go, ha ha, you're as old as me. So she had the last laugh on that. Okay, so these are a few autumn haiku. Cool silver moonlight, windows let open. I'm sorry, let me start again. Cool silver moonlight, windows open to let in the coyote's challenge. Now notice I have a different pronunciation of the word than you do, Sean, but we'll let the difference go. That's the Coleraine pronunciation. final robin of autumn, uncounted, uncelebrated. A hump of pumpkins on the stone steps, the blank stare of the old house. I was there last week. The pumpkins, the hump of pumpkins are there. Autumn chic, cows in black and white uniforms, knee-high stockings of mud. And the last one red leaf twiddled by the indecisive wind, a hawk circled south. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those are so beautiful. All right, Addison Hall, you're on deck, but let's give it up now for Ariana Collins.
Okay, am I close enough now? Yeah. Okay. I wrote this poem back in at Samhain 2021 for a Samhain ritual. Samhain it means summer's end, so it's this time of season. And I changed the ending slightly after the election this year. Samhain occurred this year on the 6th. So this is called Samhain, Spirit of Renewal. Renewal comes to us as the skeletons in our closet, bearing the bones of our ancestors who loved the land with such passion that they made love in her name every full moon. Renewal comes to us on the winds of change, blowing through us, reminding us we are the ones we have been waiting for to bridge land and sea, left and right, neighbor and stranger, rose and bee, breath and flame. Renewal comes to us in the embers of our forsaken dreams that we can no longer turn away from. We must fan the fires of our desires and live our true forms. Renewal comes to us in the waves of life when we finally let the river take us and we become one with the flow. Renewal comes to us when we stand in the center, uniting the elements and feel the divine all around us and within us. Even in these darkest of days and the most baneful of times, stay centered. Don't let the flame of joy that dwells in your heart, fueled with the breaths of gratitude and blessings, go out. Trust in the cycles of life, death, and renewal in all things. Blessed be.
Beautiful. Our true selves, we're gonna need them. Okay, Jody Hall, you're on deck, but coming to the mic right now, let's give it up for Addison Hall.
I'm going to read 4 sections of Wallace Stevens' great poem, Credences of Summer, which some of you know by heart, probably. This is a poem that I first was moved by as an undergraduate, now 55 plus years ago, and I've returned to it, usually at the beginning of summer every year, and it gives me comfort and inspiration. It's, being a Wallace Stevens poem, not only comforting, but sometimes difficult and obscure, so I'll just alert you to that danger. And this is part 1. Now in midsummer come, and all fools slaughtered, and spring's infuriations over, and a long way to the first autumnal inhalations, Young broods are in the grass. The roses are heavy with a weight of fragrance, and the mind lays by its trouble. Now the mind lays by its trouble and considers. The fidgets of remembrance come to this. This is the last day of a certain year, beyond which there is nothing left of time. It comes to this and the imagination's life. There is nothing more inscribed, nor thought, nor felt, and this must comfort the heart's core against its false disasters. Those fathers standing round, these mothers touching, speaking, being near, these lovers waiting in the soft, dry grass. And this is section 7. Far in the woods, they sang their unreal songs, secure. It was difficult to sing in face of the object. The singers had to avert themselves or else avert the object. Deep in the woods, they sang of summer in the common fields. They sang desiring an object that was near, in face of which desire no longer moved, nor made of itself that which it could not find. 3 times the concentred self takes hold. 3 times the thrice concentred self takes hold. 3 times the thrice concentred self, having possessed the object, grips it in savage scrutiny, once to make captive, once to subjugate or yield to subjugation, once to proclaim the meaning of the capture, this hard prize, fully made, fully apparent, fully found. This is section 9, the next to the last. Fly low, cock bright, and stop on a beanpole. Let your brown breast redden while you wait for warmth. With one eye, watch the willow, motionless. The gardener's cat is dead, the gardener gone, and last year's garden grows salacious weeds. A complex of emotions falls apart in an abandoned spot. Soft civil bird, the decay that you regard of the arranged and of the spirit of the arranged, douceur, tristesse, the fund of life and death, suave bush and polished beast, this complex falls apart. And on your beanpole, it may be, you detect another complex of emotions, not so soft, so civil, and you make a sound which is not part of the listener's own sense. And 10, and finally, the personae of summer play the characters of an inhuman author who meditates with the gold bugs in blue meadows late at night. He does not hear his characters talk. He sees them mottled in the moodiest costumes of blue and yellow, sky and sun, belted and knotted, sashed and seamed, half pails of red, half pails of green, appropriate habit for the huge decorum, the manner of the time, part of the mottled mood of summer's whole, in which the characters speak because they want to speak. The fat, the roseate characters, free for a moment from malice and sudden cry, completed in a completed scene, speaking their parts as in a youthful happiness. And Jody wanted to be here, but our daughter Frances broke her ankle last night, and Jody's doing childcare. But she asked me to read this, which is from the Buddhist tradition. The tradition recommends 5 daily remembrances. Some of you may know these by heart, and encourages people to recite them each morning and allow the reflection to influence their choices as the day unfolds. Number 1, I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. 2, I am of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. 3, I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death. 4, all that is mine, beloved, and pleasing will become otherwise, will become separated from me. 5, I am the owner of my action, heir to my action, born of my action, related to my action, abide supported by my action. Whatever action I shall do for good or ill, of that I will be the heir.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We will be the heirs to some cider and brownies after this event, so please stick around for that. Next up, well, on deck is Joe Osterman, but coming up now is Alex Osterman. Let's give it up.
All right, and hopefully I will make it through this. I've been very emotional this week, as I'm sure many have. This is The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things. Who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and am free.
Thank you, Alex. I think we all our emotions are running deep, and we're going to need to feel them. I think despair and kind of pushing our feelings aside isn't going to work. It doesn't bring us change. It doesn't bring us hope. So we need to feel even the despair in order to come through it. So thank you for that. Yeah. So we have competing wild geese. Okay, great. So Ellen, you're on deck, but coming up right now is Joe Osterman.
This poem is called Lost by David Wagoner. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger. You must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers. I've made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again. Saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you.
Juliet Seaver, you're on deck, but coming up with a mystery reading is Ellen Morrison. We went to middle school together, so. And college, so how cool is that? Let's give it up for Ellen.
Hello, hello? Oh, good. I would have been thrilled to read Wild Geese, but can't hear it too many times, but sorry. I am going to read Any Morning by William Stafford. Just lying on the couch and being happy, only humming a little the quiet sound in the head. Trouble is busy elsewhere at the moment. It has so much to do in the world. People who might judge me are mostly asleep. They can't monitor you all the time, and sometimes they forget. When the dawn flows over the hedge, you can get up and act busy. Little corners like this, pieces of heaven, left lying around, can be picked up and saved. People won't even see that you have them. They are so light and easy to hide. Later in the day, you can act like the others. You can shake your head. You can frown.
Okay, we have 3 more poems, and then we're going to go out with song. So after Susan Middleton, you're on deck, but right here is Juliet Seaver? Seaver. Let's give it up for Juliet.
I just want to say I know Sue Todd as this principal of the school that my kids went to long ago. Okay, so this is what oftentimes brings me relief, soothing, understanding, and you will all recognize it, I'm sure. A time for everything. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. And then I just want to add this one short sentence from Gandhi. We must be the change we wish to see in the world. Mm-hmm. That to me is a very good course of action for this time.
All right, I'm on deck, but coming up is Susan Middleton. Let's give it up for Susan.
Oh, and it's actually the right height. Excellent. I'm the culprit that brought the other that signed up for wild geese. So this is a poem that I'm sure, if not everybody, almost everybody here probably has heard at one time or another, probably many times, but I never get tired of it. So, and it's by Mary Oliver. Wild geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
Thank you so much, Susan. That was so beautiful. All of the readings this afternoon, amazing. Before I read my poem, I just want to remind everybody to give your hard copies to Susan or get her email address for this incredible, what is going to be obviously a beautiful collection. And can we give it up for Susan and the incredible hard work of putting this event together, and all who are involved, and Andy doing the tech. Woo! So in my bio that dropped, which, you know, it happens. No, don't worry. I have 2 books of poems. My third is forthcoming in 2026. Thank you. Which, you know how these things are, these small presses, they do incredible work. I was just seeing a list on social media of all the big companies we should boycott in our holiday shopping. And I was like, you know who you never have to worry about is a small poetry press. Those are ethical gods and goddesses among us. So as you're thinking about your holiday shopping, think about books and music and other sources of solace that are coming from people who whose hearts are open to everyone and to change. All that said, this poem is not in that collection. It'll be in my 4th, which who knows when that'll be. But it's called I Am Asked What Another World Looks Like. Many of you know the Arundhati Roy quote, I'm sure, and of course we've been quoting these other people who've spoken of this. But the great Indian writer and activist, she said, another day is not only coming, on a quiet day I can hear her breathing. And I often say that poetry is that breath. So I am asked what another world looks like. We step outside and small children, sleek from sprinklers raining the scent of every gorgeous night, sing to us their poems. The poems sing back the child's long life ahead, cousins who grow side by side, each child a cousin, kin. And each neighbor is in love with every neighbor child's poem. The child and the poem roller skating that love, racing. And the poem is a ripe pomegranate, intricate and staining with sweet red the fingers, face, and teeth of the child, the vision of the child full of the pomegranate poem. The poem is play, and the poem is grown-ups telling their growing up stories. And the poem is potluck suppers, saffron rice, tangy greens, roasted peppers, aromas of 1,000 cuisines. History is in the poem, and sadness. But the child's poem sings the possible, sings the body. The child's poem is pleasure, high swings and kicking feet, and always a warm bed, fingers to entwine. The child steps outside, and we listen for her poem. This Latrice poem, this Maria poem, this Li Hua poem, this Habibi poem, this Joanne poem, this Ruth poem, this Earth poem, this possible poem, this other world poem, this breath, this believing, living poem breath. Thank you. And now we're going to be sung out by the breath of Jane Kaufman, who's going to sing to us Psalm 23 in a Hebrew version, in Hebrew itself. So, Jane Kaufman.
I want to ask that you read this. Actually, I forgot to get a copy myself. From the Book of Common Prayer, it's on page 612 in the Red Books. And what's interesting, sorry, Helen is here, so I should be using the mic. If she's not, I would rather not. What's interesting about the placement of this psalm in this book is it is on page 612, but it goes to page 613. And as you probably know, the Psalms are from the Hebrew Bible, and there are 613 commandments in the Hebrew Bible. So an interesting parallel between the Book of Common Prayer and the Hebrew Bible. And I'm still turning to it, sorry. All right, so let's read it together, and then I'm going to try to sing the Hebrew. All right. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul and guides me along right pathways for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in the presence of those who trouble me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup is running over. Surely your goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Mizmor le David, Adonai roi lo echsar, bina deshayar bitseni, amei menuchot yan huleni, nafshi yeshovev, nafshi yeshovev, Yancheni b'magle tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech begetz al mavet lo irara ki ata imadi Shivtecha umishantecha, hemayinachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, neged sorerai, dishanta v'shemen roshi, dishanta v'shemen roshi, dishanta v'shemen roshi, kosi revaya,
Stick around for brownies and cider.